Welcome back to Reds Fusion LFC, your home for all things Liverpool. Today, we've got huge updates on Alexander Isak's long-awaited debut, a fresh boost for the Reds amid red card drama, and how Hugo Ekitike is stepping up in style. Plus, what it all means for Klopp's men going forward. Let's dive straight in. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay updated with every twist and turn in the transfer window. Alexander Isak decision confirmed as long wait continues ahead of Liverpool. Debut Alexander Isak's long wait to make an appearance this season could come to an end today, with the striker having finally completed his move to Liverpool on transfer deadline day. Alexander Isak will have to wait a little while longer to make his first appearance of the season after the new Liverpool striker was named on the bench for Sweden against Kosovo. Isak hasn't played a single minute of competitive action since the start of the 2025-26 campaign, having been left out by Newcastle as he tried to get his move to Anfield over the line. The 25-year-old was forced to train alone, with reports at the time suggesting he was refusing to play for the Magpies before he eventually secured his $169 million switch to Merseyside on deadline day and immediately headed out on international duty with Sweden. Isak was named in a matchday squad for the first time this season for his country's World Cup qualifier against Slovenia on Friday, although he would remain an unused substitute, despite his side conceding a late equalizer in a 2-2 draw. Sweden. Boss Jon Dahl Tomasson hinted that Isak could feature in the second game of the international break against Kosovo, though, and recent posts by the country's media team would seem to suggest he will feature at some point. "The last game, I kept him on the bench for 90 minutes long," Tomasson said. "A bit for the result. If we were 1-1, then he would definitely have played minutes, but we were leading. We shouldn't forget that Alex had only had 3 training sessions, but now has had 5 training sessions. He hasn't had a long pre-season, so we are thinking about the short term and also the long term. But he can definitely be a game changer." If Isak is to make his first appearance of the season today, though, it will be as a substitute, with the 25-year-old having once again been named on the bench by Tomasson. Instead, Viktor Gyökeres is preferred. Up front, with Newcastle's Anthony Elanga will provide support to the Arsenal frontman. Liverpool may not be too disappointed with Isak missing out on a first start of the season, with a hectic schedule awaiting the Reds once they return to action this weekend. A trip to Burnley awaits on Sunday before Atletico Madrid visits Anfield on Wednesday as the opening stage of Champions League gets underway, with Everton visiting just a few days later for the Merseyside derby. "I've had a tricky summer where I haven't played any games," Isak said when his transfer was confirmed on deadline day. "I've had restricted training, so I think that's one to judge and to analyze where I am at and how much I am ready to give. But I certainly want to play as soon as possible." Alexander Isak hands Liverpool welcome boost amid red card drama. Latest Liverpool news as Alexander Isak hands the Reds a welcome boost ahead of the return of Premier League football this weekend. Liverpool have been handed potentially a major boost over Alexander Isak's fitness. The Reds signed the striker on transfer deadline day on a permanent deal from Newcastle United after a $125 million fee was agreed between both clubs. Following his move to Liverpool, Isak was called up to the Sweden squad for their round of World Cup qualifiers this month. The 25-year-old did not feature in the first fixture against Slovenia last week and was an unused substitute. Isak was named on the bench again for the clash against Kosovo on Monday night, but was given some valuable minutes this time around. Sweden manager Jon Dahl Tomasson introduced the striker to the match in the 72nd minute, with Isak replacing his former Newcastle teammate Anthony Elanga. Sweden went on to lose the game 2-0, the same scoreline as when Isak was substituted in the contest. Just 10 minutes into his cameo, the Liverpool striker was given a yellow card by referee Allard Lindout. There was late drama in the game, as Kosovo had a player sent off in stoppage time. Lyndon Emerlahu was shown 2 yellow cards in the clash. At the Fadil Vakri Stadium, and was given his marching orders despite only being on the pitch for 7 minutes after being substituted on in the closing stages. Isak will now return to Merseyside this week with a view to being awarded his debut. For Liverpool at the weekend, the Reds will take on Burnley at Turf Moor in what could be Isak's first appearance for Arne Slot's side. Alexander Isak issue solved as Hugo Ekitike provides perfect answers for Liverpool. Hugo Ekitike has experienced a whirlwind few months after completing 79-minute transfer to Liverpool from Eintracht Frankfurt. It hardly seems the most appropriate reward. Hugo Ekitike's clinical strike at Newcastle United last month made him the first player since Daniel Sturridge in January 2013 to score in each of his first 3 games as a Liverpool player. Having already netted the openers in the Community Shield against Crystal Palace and at home to Bournemouth in the Premier League, it was a continuation of an impressive start to the season for the 23-year-old following his arrival from Eintracht Frankfurt in a deal that could eventually cost the Reds $79 million. So barely 24 hours after playing his part in the hard-earned win over Arsenal that ensured the champions went into the first international break as leaders of the embryonic table, Ekitike could have been a little irked to see the Reds splash out 125 meters on signing Alexander Isak from Newcastle United to end the summer's most contentious transfer saga. With 100 meters plus players rarely bought to populate the bench, it would seem Ekitike could soon be bumped out of the central striker role he has commanded with impressive authority this season. The Frenchman, though, has been here before, when signed from Reims by Paris Saint-Germain. A then 20-year-old faced the onerous task of ejecting one of Kylian Mbappé, Neymar, or Lionel Messi from the forward line. It didn't quite work out, with Ekitike then serving a reminder of his quality during an 18-month stay at Frankfurt. Small wonder the forward has no qualms with the arrival of Isak, stating merely that he will focus on performing well so that it's a problem for the manager. But in the short term, Ekitike may well be solving one issue for Slot. With Isak having not played a Premier League game since May, it is likely to take some time before the Sweden international recovers full match sharpness and fitness. And with Ekitike having already answered the question of whether he is capable of delivering for Liverpool, head coach Arne Slot will have no issue with continuing to entrust the player with leading the line while also giving him further opportunities to strengthen his own claims for regular inclusion. Of course, that Liverpool view Ekitike as a versatile forward will stand him in good stead, particularly with a large onus falling at present on Cody Gakpo and Mohamed Salah on the left and right flanks, respectively. There will be plenty of openings for minutes, along with the tantalizing prospect of Isak and Ekitike being partnered in a central area, offering Slot more tactical variation. Not that Ekitike is daunted by the task ahead. Obviously, my life has changed, he says. It's a big move, and I'm watched 1,000 times more, but I'm taking it positively. It's really good. It's the position I wanted to be in. When you have this kind of standard, you have to show that you belong here and you have to continue to perform. But it's a position that I like and that I want to keep. There was another step for Ekitike this week when, having been called into the France national team for the first time due to late withdrawals, he made a senior debut for his country, as a substitute late on in the 2-0 win over Ukraine on Friday. It's a real pleasure to be a part of this group of French attackers, knowing their quality, he says. I'm taking it as a learning experience because they are players who have more experience than me in the national team. We don't have much time to connect, but it's a real pleasure to be with them. We have to rise to their level. Liverpool was always Ekitike's preferred destination this summer, the Reds finally making their move after Newcastle United looked to sign the forward. And agent Ali Barat has revealed how far down the line the Magpies had traveled before Liverpool swooped. I was working on behalf of Eintracht Frankfurt to bring him to Newcastle. I stayed in Germany for 10 days, said Barat to Tuttosport. We agreed everything with the German club and the player. Then Liverpool called him and he chose Anfield. Ekitike already has no regrets. And challenging Isak for a starting role is simply more reason to be enthusiastic rather than be intimidated. Liverpool gets immediate Alexander Isak scare as record signing, finally handed first appearance. Alexander Isak was finally handed his first appearance of the season, although Liverpool fans were given a scare just seconds after he came off the bench for Sweden. New Liverpool signing Alexander Isak has finally made his first appearance of the season, and Reds fans will have had their hearts in their mouths. Just seconds after he came off the bench for Sweden on Monday, Isak, of course, secured a deadline day move to Anfield after a long summer transfer saga with Newcastle, with Liverpool setting a new Premier League transfer record at $169 million for his signature. No sooner had the 25-year-old arrived on Merseyside, though, than he was heading off on international duty as Sweden got its World Cup qualifying campaign underway during the international break. Isak had not played a single minute of competitive action before linking up with his country, having been forced to train alone at Newcastle as he tried to force through his move to Liverpool. He was left on the bench for Sweden's 2-2 draw with Slovenia on Friday, but he was finally handed his first appearance of the season on Monday against Kosovo. With just under 20 minutes remaining, Isak was brought off the bench to replace Anthony Elanga, and any Liverpool fans watching would have been looking on nervously as just a few seconds later, the striker seemed to fall awkwardly after challenging for a header. After staying on the ground for a while, Isak thankfully got back to his feet and showed no ill effects from the landing. It continued to be an all-action cameo, with Isak picking up a yellow card as tempers flared during the final 10 minutes. While he saw a late effort saved by Arijanet Murik as Sweden failed to find a way back into the game. Arne Slot and Liverpool, though, will be relieved to have seen Isak come through his first minutes of action unscathed, ahead of what will be his first training sessions with his new teammates later this week. The Reds take on Burnley on Sunday in what could prove to be Isak's debut for the club, with Liverpool looking to make it 4 wins out of 4 at the start of its title defense. "I've had a tricky summer where I haven't played any games," Isak said when his transfer was confirmed on deadline day. "I've had restricted training, so I think that's one to judge and to analyze where I am at and how much I am ready to give. But I certainly want to play as soon as possible." Bayern's wounded Florian Wirtz claim doesn't stack up as Liverpool man gets what he really needs. Is Florian Wirtz's decision to choose Liverpool over Bayern Munich counting against him in his German homeland? Paul Gorst assesses hen he came to survey his options at the beginning of the summer. It would have been the easiest thing in the world for Florian Wirtz, at the first major junction of his fledgling career, to have taken the easy option. For the Germany international, there were 2 that would have been considered the safer choices as he weighed up interest from Manchester City, Bayern Munich and Liverpool, alongside the forlorn hope from Bayer Leverkusen over a contract extension. Having become the jewel of Germany under the tutelage of Xabi Alonso, an extended stay at the Bay Arena might have appealed, but with Die Work Self's squad set to be decimated by sales alongside the eventual departure of the Real Madrid-bound Alonso, that was eventually ruled out. A move to Bayern, for many, seemed something of a no-brainer. The Bavarians have a rich history of extracting the finest footballers from Germany from elsewhere, and plenty assumed that Wirtz would simply become the latest in a long line. Bayern are the Bundesliga behemoths, and even their rivals for domestic honors are forced to go on bended knee when their best players are in demand in Munich. That was something Jurgen Klopp became wearily familiar with during his 7 years at Borussia Dortmund, seeing Robert Lewandowski and Mario Götze leave while in charge. Another key lieutenant, Mats Hummels, also left, with his defection coming a year after the former Reds boss had moved to Anfield. Put simply, if Bayern want a young Germany international, they usually get their man. So it was somewhat jarring for those at the Allianz in the summer when they were beaten to Wirtz by Liverpool, who made the 22-year-old the most expensive footballer in Anfield history when he signed for an initial $100 million in June. "We're very satisfied at FC Bayern," Bayern's honorary president Uli Hoeneß said of their window. "We are the real winners of the summer transfer window. We have a strong team and didn't need to strengthen it much. Of course, we would have liked to have Florian Wirtz, but we'd never have bought him for $150 million. We offered 47.7 million for Nick Woltemade, while Stuttgart wanted 65 million. In the end, he went to Newcastle for 78 million. What Newcastle are doing has nothing to do with football. It's like Monopoly these days. It's unclear if the Isak Wirtz valuation has been deliberately inflated by Hoeneß, but Liverpool paid an initial 100 million for the attacking midfielder with a further 16 million in success-based add-ons. Considering the Bundesliga champions paid 100 million for England captain Harry Kane at the age of 30, the Bayern chief's insistence that the Red Star's price tag was too exorbitant doesn't necessarily stack up, seeing both Wirtz and Woltemade slip. Through their grasps, this summer has no doubt left Bayern feeling wounded, given their long-established history of cherry-picking the best of the best from home soil. But has Wirtz's indirect snubbing of Bayern led to some overly critical appraisals of his performances for the national side? Germany's 2-0 defeat to Slovakia last week inevitably led to plenty of harsh words from a media that is just as fiercely demanding as England's, and the Liverpool man was caught in the eye of the storm. Wirtz was accused of forgetting his joy, and too often seeking personal salvation in his displays against Slovakia and Sunday's 3-1 win over Northern Ireland, prior to smashing home a superb free kick to settle the game in Cologne. The player himself admitted the performance against Slovakia was far from acceptable, saying, "We all know the last game was a disaster." Maybe by choosing Liverpool over Bayern, Wirtz had inadvertently opened himself up as an easy target for the German media whenever things are going according to plan for Die Mannschaft. Without the natural groundswell of goodwill and support that comes from being an integral figure for the biggest club in the country in Bayern, the Anfield attacker might have to get used to being singled out at times as a result. It's far easier for the media to criticize when the player does not play for a club the size of Bayern, who have an army of former players and pundits working in the media to offer a robust defense of specific performances. It's why Wirtz's stunning free kick against the Northern Irish was a perfect riposte on Sunday evening. And in the meantime, he will find all the backing and support he needs back on Merseyside.